I'm doing a post about addiction. I got clean in 1994. I'm just going to kind of ramble on about this. Of course, if it's not for you, then this isn't going to be interesting to you. Okay, so I got clean in 94, but it was a long road to actually get there. Ideally, this post is to help anyone that may be struggling in the throes of addiction. Back then in 94, it was termed alcohol and drug addiction, drug and alcohol addiction. I don't know what they're terming it these days, but that never really made real sense to me because alcohol is a drug. It's merely in this country been legalized, so whatever. It's still a drug. Now, I'll just throw this in here quickly. Interestingly enough, whatever drug a person is involved with, it ends up being, certainly in their mind, in their experience, the hardest one to kick, that kind of thing. It's like, oh yeah, maybe you went through that, but I went through this, and that's the hardest drug to kick, whatever. If you're actually addicted, whatever you're addicted to, it's going to feel that way to you. Addiction is addiction. If you or someone you know has been in a space where it's like, man, I just don't need that. I'm tired of it. I'm just going to stop. It's messing with my life. And then you or your friend or whatever just apparently walked away from it. Then you may have been, well, you weren't actually hardcore addicted, okay? I don't know what the technical terms are, but that level of addiction wasn't really present for you. It might have been messing up your life. It might have been, causing some serious problems. But if you're able to just walk away from it, just by saying, yo, I'm tired of it, I'm just not going to do that anymore, then you weren't actually really addicted, okay? Because the actual addiction is where the blood and the tears and the suicides and just all that good stuff actually come into play. You're not just going to walk away from it. Now, I'm going to be all over the place with this post, and if I think it sucks, I'm just going to delete it. I am live right now. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. One of the other things. Oh, yeah, and I was going to make notes so I could refer to them and get maybe a better flow, because that would be good for a better flow, but I didn't make notes because it's like I just didn't want to be bothered, so I'm just sitting down and doing it. Like I said, if it sucks, I'll delete it. In case you just joined us, I'm speaking about addiction. I was addicted to anything that I could get high with, basically. I lived on at the end of my experience, I lived on a small mountain in northern Maine, and the easiest drug for me to get was alcohol. Alcohol was a primary drug for me throughout my drug addiction career, if you will, but I definitely got into other things, and I just wanted to get high and basically escape reality. I want to share a saying with you. I used to say when I was in my addictive life that reality was for people that couldn't handle drugs. And I really meant it. I mean, for me, getting high, on whatever drug was available was what I did and everyone I knew did. I started out as a kid, and you know how that works. I mean, like associates with like. And so in my world, everybody got high. If you didn't get high, you weren't in my world. I wasn't in your world, whatever. So I used to say, reality is for people that can't handle drugs. But I discovered actually that reality, it turns out, whatever that may be, that reality is actually the biggest trip of all. Now, that's an interesting play with words and stuff, but ultimately, it's actually true. I'm all over the place with this video, but it's still always going to be, well, it's turning into a video, but it's live right now, I know. It's always going to be focused around addiction and surviving addiction, because we're not just talking about addiction, talking about life on the other side of it. Okay, so I'll touch upon that. When I don't want to lose that train of thought, so I'll have to go with it. I would interject something here, but I don't want to lose that train of thought. When I first actually, in earnest, attempted to live clean, when that was really what I felt I needed to do to survive, it was a new area for me. I truly, because I'd spent so many years high. I mean, I finally cleaned up. I was like, I don't even remember now. It was 94, November. And I got there via programs, you know, like, what do you call it? Residential treatment facility. I'll go into that more too, but I don't want to lose that train of thought. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, I truly didn't know what straight people did, how they lived. I didn't know how to live without altering, without some kind of substance that alters reality, right? I didn't know how. Now that might sound, oh, that's interesting. Didn't know how. No, man. I mean, I didn't know how. I did not know how. What do you do with that? Where do you go with that? And you don't know how. I mean, whew, that's, I'm telling you, that's heavy. And maybe perhaps some of you viewing this right now can relate, can identify with that experience. I want to say again, this broadcast is my attempt to share with anyone who may need to hear it that you can do it. You can do it. If you're seeking to get clean and stay clean, you can do it. I know you can do it because I did it. And it ain't no lie. If I can do it, you can do it. I'll share one thing just to give you an idea how like into just being wasted I was. I mean, and I was really good at it. I started really young, you know. I mean, I started drinking when I was 3. No, that's right, 3. That's a story in itself. Okay, I stopped and I didn't start again until I was like 12. But whatever. Perhaps in some future broadcasts, or even this one, I'll share some of those stories. What was I going to share just now? If I can do it, you can do it, and that's the reality. Oh yeah, I think I sidetracked myself there. Well, I'll just keep going. I mean, this is live. It's not like I'm going to edit it. Well, just as one story along the way. What was I going to say? It's like on the tip of my brain. Anyway, perhaps it'll come back before we finish here. One story along the way is back in my teens, late teens, I discovered, what were they called? Well, on the street, basically, we called them spin dries. It was in a local hospital and up on the top floor. And basically, you would end up there for just like maybe 2 days, something like that. They'd hit you with vitamin C. No, not vitamin C, vitamin B something or other. And that was supposedly to try to save brain cells. You know, it was the, I guess it was the alcoholism ward. that kind of thing. But I discovered that once upon a time when the police brought me there instead of jail. I didn't even know those places existed. I mean, I knew jail existed. I meant the spin dry facility on the hospital. I'd seen it in the movies. I hadn't really thought too much of it. I don't know. That was like big city stuff or something. I was in, not a totally small city or nothing, but it hadn't come into my experience. Anyway, it was in my late teens, I believe. Late teens, yeah. That I was brought to one. And that was interesting, and I couldn't leave. You had to actually stay 24 hours, I think it was, before you could leave. And but basically, you'd stay 2 days, I think it was. We're talking a long time ago. And then they would kick you out. You had to go. But when the police brought you, you had to stay 24 hours. The alternative was, if you leave on your own before your 24-hour period is up, the police come and get you and take you to jail instead, right? So anyway, that's how I was introduced to that. The detox ward is what it was called. And so after being introduced to that, I would, when I was reaching a place of crashing and burning from just too much, substance abuse, I would get myself there. I would basically just call myself in and get myself to the detox ward. They tried getting me on something, I don't even know if they have it these days, but it was called antabuse. And the idea of that was it was a drug, and if you drink, because I did other things back then, but certainly back then my primary drug of choice, as they say, was alcohol. Just alcohol in all its many forms. But antabuse, the idea was if you drank while you had it in your system, it would make you violently ill and potentially even kill you, And so that was supposed to be a deterrent. Now, I didn't want any part of that. Why would I want to do that? No, man, I was just there to, basically get my head back on right. I had reached a crisis level where I was just burning out my system so badly that admittedly I had reached a place in my mind where I thought I wanted to quit. It's like, man, I just can't do this. I don't want to do this anymore. Help me stop. But after the spin dry, I would eventually go back to trying it again. I'll do it differently this time. It'll do it this way, that way, all that stuff. I won't go into my entire history. Let's because it's really long. But I remember sitting there. And every time I went, of course, I would gain more information. More information would sink in, and so, in its way, I was being educated. Seeds were being planted in my subconscious and consciousness that eventually lighted the path, if you will, lit the tunnel for my escape from the clutches of addiction. I remember sitting there. There was a speaker that came in one of those times, and I was just, I'm part of the group. I'm part of I'm one of the clients, or whatever you call them, patients. And I remember thinking something like, wow, I'd sure love to be on that side of it someday and be able to talk about, what life is like clean, But it was like a dream to me, just a dream, because it wasn't anything I was able to try on and actually wear for any extended period of time. One day when I had arrived back at the detox ward, I was brought out to the desk, like maybe halfway through my stay or something like that, after I'd, straightened up a bit. And the fellow asked me, he said something like, "Do you know how many times you've been here?" And I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe 6, you know. And he pulled out my chart, and I think it was something like maybe 20 something. What? I had no clue. Seriously, it's like, what? That was a shock to me. Anyway, I did eventually try, because they kept pushing the antabuse on me, and I kept refusing it. I did eventually try it, basically through desperation. But it's like, unless I made the choice inside of myself and held on to it, then a drug like antabuse wasn't going to work. It couldn't work. Because along the way, while you're in there with other patients, you do hear things. You hear that, yeah, you better not drink on it, from people they've known or whatever. But you also hear, stop taking it this many days before you do drink again, and it's going to be okay. So that's what I would end up doing. I would end up taking it, and then just when the urge got too great, when it started to get too great, because I didn't want to have the urge be too great and not be able to feed it, So as soon as the urge started to feel like it was getting potentially too great, got a party I'm going to like next Saturday, I better, whatever the time frame was, I better stop the drug, the antabuse. So that's what ended up happening, and so it was pointless for me to, because the decision had to be made inside of me, and held to any kind of a drug that would potentially stop me from, drinking, just had no prayer of working if I hadn't made the decision inside, because I'm just going to stop doing whatever that drug may have been that was supposed to stop me from drinking. So, okay, where can I go from there? Once again, the idea is, I felt that if I could ever stop, if I could ever get clean and stay clean, and this is a fact, that means anybody can. Because, okay, that's what I wanted to say, that story, just to share with you, how kind of hardcore I was back in my early 20s. I discovered something. I did. And that was that at closing time at the bar, people are going to, just leave their drinks on the bar. I know, this sounds pretty gross, really disgusting, actually. But it seemed like a good time to me. A good idea to me. And I did keep it up for a while. I don't remember how long, but it was like free drinks, man. I'd be at the bar, it'd be closing time, people would be leaving, whatever. And I would just I'd go from one end of the bar all the way through the whole bar, grabbing people's drinks that had left them behind. And I'd drink them. I got a lot of drinks that way, So, yeah, I didn't just drink. I got thoroughly inebriated. That was always my goal. I, of course, was one of those people that, my target was total inebriation. And once again, that was just, pretty much the easiest drug to get. I'd do anything. There was this time, I hesitate to share it. No, I better not share that one. Anyway, in a nutshell, things finally, when I was around 24, but my career lasted way past 24, into my early 40s, I guess it was. But when I was 24, while drunk, and while just sick of the messed up life that I was creating for myself, I actually decided to, what was it? It was a painkiller, which I think is kind of poetic. I just took a bunch of them, and I figured I was going to check out, that kind of thing. And I made it in the sense that I was DOA when they brought me in. to the hospital. A roommate had phoned an ambulance, that kind of thing. But yeah, I was definitely DOA, which is an interesting experience in itself. Do you ever have that? Because like when I woke up, I had this like tube down my throat and stuff, which was, oh my God, insanely uncomfortable. And I was tied to the bed. I didn't like that either. Um, that's when you find out who your friends are. I only had one person come to visit me. And the person who was my girlfriend at the time, she totally didn't. That should have like been a warning flag, right? I mean, whatever. But yeah, once again, if I can get clean and stay clean, you can get clean and stay clean. I'm just sharing bits and pieces of my story because I'm not just saying this for the fun of it. I'm hoping that somehow what I share today can help someone out there. My experience was long and drawn out. Yeah, I ended up going to treat a couple of treatment facilities. The 2-day spin dry thing, it was interesting to implant seeds in my awareness that could take root and grow. And from there, eventually, years later, I did progress and end up in a few good treatment facilities, which were very helpful. Basically, they just helped educate me. The first treatment facility I was in, there's a lot of book reading. And of course, the idea was if you're not doing your book reports and you're not doing absolutely everything they say you need to do, then they're just going to kick you out. And it was a pretty good one. Actually, it was probably a very good one. There was even this guy that his company had flown him in by helicopter, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And then I ended up in that one 3 times. I kept having in my head that I needed to go home so I could share what I had learned with the person I was married to, because she was certainly as caught up in the throes of addiction as me. It turns out that's what we had in common. And I actually got clean and stayed clean. We just didn't really have anything in common anymore. As a matter of fact, I just didn't even want her touching me, actually, which doesn't help a relationship. But I cared about her, so I ended up going back thinking I could just save her, share what I had learned somehow, be a good role model, be a good influence, whatever. So now they told me, don't do it, and the analogy that I came up in my head with finally when I did move on was you can only run into a burning building so many times before that sucker's going to crash on you. It's just going to kill you, right? In your way, that's what they were telling me, don't go back. You have to save yourself, They could see it more clearly than me, because I was just always, well, until I wasn't, I was in the frame of mind of, okay, it sounds like they know what they're talking about, but they don't know me and my situation. But in a nutshell, they were right. I had to get out of that and stay out of that. So I ended up, okay, first time I was in that treatment facility, okay, blah, blah, blah. And then when it came time for me when I started crashing and burning again, I didn't want to go back. I felt embarrassed. I felt I had let people down, that, they believed in me. They believed I could do it. And I didn't want to go back. Now, interestingly enough, one of the counselors there, now the counselors aren't really supposed to have any contact with you outside of there. It's like an ethical or psychological or both or whatever. You're just not supposed to, But I had met him years before I ever went there. And he basically said when he saw me there, because he remembered meeting me in the past, he had driven he was just on an outing one day, and he had driven up the mountain where I live, and he had met me. Apparently, I was, inebriated, which was, usually the case. And when he saw me at the treatment facility, the first time, he was like, I wondered how long it would take you to get here. So I liked him. I won't name names or anything, but anyway, because we already had that prior contact, he wasn't violating anything to check on me every now and then. And it was probably through him that I ended up there again. Basically him, just seeing me and checking on me and seeing me and, giving me that nudge. Yeah, because I didn't want to go back. I just felt, too bad about having fallen again, So I ended up there it was on the third time that I had given up on trying to save my partner, and realized that if I was going to survive, I had to just, leave the mountain and start my life over again, which brings me back to where I was in the beginning of this. I had no clue really as to what straight people did. I just didn't know. I mean, what do straight people do? How do they? I don't know. So that was an adventure in itself. A lot of things, of course, are not occurring to me right now. But once again, in case you just joined us, this is all about, if you want to get clean and stay clean, I'm telling you, don't give up. Man, I failed at it so many times, and I'm lucky to be here, because during one drunken episode, when I was just getting sick of the pain of my messed up life, I actually attempted suicide, took a bunch of painkillers. And as I mentioned a few moments ago, I made it. I was DOA. I made it. They brought me back, And that was kind of trippy, though. I don't remember any tunnel or any bright white lights, except for the one above me that was in the emergency ward when they managed to, That's a little disconcerting. How come I don't get that? Actually, for years, and I can't say 100% that how can I put this? For years after that, I wasn't actually sure if I had actually made it and they didn't bring me back, and somehow I was in another existence, living reality, because there's things, lessons, whatever, life experiences that I needed, and so I'm continuing in another way outside of the physical reality I was in, and so on like that. And I can't say that I'm 100% certain that's not the case. And for those of you that may not be, that may not even think along concepts like that, it might sound totally insane, but there it is. Because it's like, after you actually do that, especially if, you're told you were DOA, right? It's like, well, how do I know I'm really back? So that's weird. Okay, what else can I share with you? Okay, one of the things that was really beneficial to me was meditation. I used meditation, regular meditation, as a tool to just help give me the whatever to make it through every day. And I'm not sure right now what the words are to describe that, but basically I used meditation to stay clean. Now, at first, staying clean was really hard. I'm going to say that. I quit cigarettes at the same time, but it's not like because I just stomped my foot and said, that's enough, I'm going to quit cigarettes too. I was pretty sick that last time. Well, I've been pretty sick a few times along the way. I mean, when I was in my early 20s, remember, I didn't stop till I was like in my 40s. And when I was in my early 20s, there were some times I was vomiting blood in the street, from just drinking so much, And when I started seeing a counselor after one of the spin dry episodes. I took them up on the "you need to see somebody" thing, and so I started seeing a counselor, and I shared one of my experiences with me. And interestingly enough, he told me, because there was this day when I was in the detox ward where I was laying there on my bed. It was during the day. I had gone in just to rest for a moment. I forget how that worked. You weren't allowed to do that, but I forget how that worked. Maybe it was nap time or something. I don't remember. Anyway, the best way I can describe it is there was these like just phantoms kind of with wispy clothes on flying around in a circle above my bed. I'm laying there on my back and I'm looking up. They're flying around in a circle. And I had the deepest sense of terror I'd ever known, in my conscious awareness that I'd ever experienced. And I was just, anyway, he had shared with me that apparently I was suffering at that moment delirium tremens, what they call the DTs. And he told me that chronologically, for my age, that wasn't really a good thing. That I was like, in his interpretation of the experience of where DTs should be in a person's history, that should be like far, far away in the future. So I had apparently, at a fairly young age, graduated to advanced stages in relation to the alcoholism. Yeah, it was like terrifying. It wasn't terrifying because I saw something flying around up there. I mean, I had certainly, done my share of hallucinogens in the past and all that, not right then and there, but, no, there was just something, it was connected. The terror inside of me was somehow connected to that. I don't know, it's the best way I can describe it. Why did I share that? I don't know, I guess just to express, like, how caught up and advanced I was in the process. Okay, so like I said, I'm all over the place in this broadcast. But once again, got clean in '94, been clean ever since, of everything. I even quit smoking cigarettes. But my body was rejecting the cigarettes and they were just making me sick anyway, which doesn't really help. I mean, some people, it's like, they're told, you got to stop drinking or you're going to die. Or you're going to stop this and you're going to die. You're going to do this, you're going to die. And for some people, it just doesn't happen. They're not able to stop that addiction, whatever it is, and they die. I wanted to keep smoking, and certainly a part of me wanted to keep drinking. It's just that things had gotten way too ugly, and I was trashing my body, right? And my body was rejecting it in so many different ways. So it just ended up that I just found it necessary, I'm remembering now, to quit smoking. At the same time, the smoking was already, like I said, making me feel sick as my body rejected it. And part of what I had to do at the treatment facility was read books and do book reports and talk about them and be in group counseling and all that stuff. Well, the cigarettes are making me sick. I'm already like, out there anyway, right? And now on top of that struggle to just think clearly, the cigarettes are going to make it even harder because they're making me sick. So, so it just wasn't easy either. But I had to, because in my experience, I had reached the point where it had become a life and death struggle for me. It just plain and simple had. And in the back of my mind, there was always that, what if I get drunk enough to attempt to off myself again? That's not comfortable. I don't know what was going on this time. I don't know if it was like that or not, but I was up on the mountain, probably 30 something, I don't know, I'm just guessing. 38 maybe. I don't know. And I woke up in the bathroom. And when I say woke up, um, I'm not sure. And anyway, I guess the best way to say it is I woke up and I had the 5 gallon gas container that we have, and it had kerosene in it. And I was drinking the kerosene. I woke up like that. I woke up drinking the kerosene out of the kerosene container. Was that attempted suicide? I don't know. What was that? That was weird. So yeah, things had definitely gotten into a messed up space. But as a person might think that should be enough, it's not. I mean, yeah, it was part of an experience, and I don't know how long it was after that I ended up trying to quit, you know. When I was up on the mountain, um, really there were only 2 drugs available to me, and that was alcohol and pot. So on the mountain for 9.5 years, so there was a long space. I mean, I would come across other stuff occasionally, and I would do other stuff if I came across it, it's just that I didn't have ready access like I had in the city. Yeah, so I don't know. If I run out of things to say here, I'll just stop. But once again, if I could get clean and stay clean, so can you. Just don't give up. And take that thing seriously. In my experience, okay, and Dan, I got a lot of experience. In my experience, I highly recommend you stay away from all mood-altering substances. I've met so many people over time, because they made me read a lot of freaking books, okay? Now, fortunately, I like reading anyway. But, like I said, it was hard because my mind was too fogged and all kinds of stuff and the emotions, whatever. But they force you to do that stuff in the place I was at. And then you got to prove you read it by talking about it, sharing and all that stuff. But, oh, shucks and Mundo, what was my point just now? They said, stay away from all mood-altering substances, If your drug of choice was alcohol, that doesn't mean replace it with pot. Just smoke more pot. You're going to be okay. No, man. Because for me, because I did all that. Of course I did all that. Why wouldn't I do all that? I didn't suddenly want to stop getting high. I didn't want to not be high. It's only the crash and burn too many times and the pain that caused me to try harder and harder and not give up, right? Well, I sure gave up plenty of times, but I mean, I kept coming back around. So if you want to get clean and stay clean, and and I had to learn through my own experience too. So maybe what I'm saying will just be a seed that I'm planting within you that you can come back to at some point. Maybe some point in the future. You won't even remember where you heard it, but it'll be like a faint echo, just saying, hey, you need to stop all mood-altering substances. You need to learn how to interact with reality and deal with the emotions and all that stuff without any mood-altering substances. And that's how you get across the bridge. Okay? Now, it's not hard for me to be clean anymore. I mean, it stopped being hard years ago. I don't know the exact date, but it did. And I got to tell you, that's wonderful because it didn't happen overnight. I don't desire, I don't have the desire anymore to be high. Okay? I know this is going to sound so cliche, but, I'm high on life. Well, not like I run around being like all happy and blissed out all the time. But once again, turns out reality is the biggest trip of all. I mean, it is. Reality is a trip. And when you take a look at it under the microscope of observation, turns out it's really trippy. It's not as clear-cut, black and white, and solid as a lot of people may think it is. That's another story. It's like, what's going on here anyway? You know, I'm serious, man. You know, there's just stuff. This reality is like potentially really complicated. It's just not. It's just not one thing, you know. And like I said, that's a whole other. People have been talking about that in a myriad of ways, you know, over the centuries, you know. But yeah, so biggest trip of all, there it is. It just is. But if you're like, you know, stoned or drugged out or drunk, you know, you don't get to start exploring those finer nuances of what is reality. And I'm not able to say there's ever an end point to know the answer to that, but it is an interesting journey, as opposed to taking a drug, having a glimpse here and there, and then just basically waking up back in your own old bullshit world, you know? Yeah. So there it is. I highly recommend staying away from all mood altering substances. I recommend finding a form of meditation. There are many meditations, they are not all created equally. And regardless of what someone may tell you, one meditation does not fit all. If you try a meditation and it doesn't speak to you, then try another one. You're bound to find something. Also, if you have the ability, I would say get regular massage. Massage helps on so many different levels, emotionally, physically, spiritually. I mean, and when we're going through the psychological and physical withdrawals in relation to getting clean, certainly we need all the support we can get. So if you have the ability, get regular massage, you know. I did not have the ability. I just did not. Now, it turns out in later years, I actually became a massage therapist, you know, but which I am now as well. So yeah, find a support group. There's AA, there's NA. In my experience, I felt more comfortable with NA. That stands for Narcotics Anonymous, just because in my mind, where they say like drugs and alcohol, it just never made sense to me. It was all a drug to me, you know, and it was just whatever drug I could get at the time. And AA was great. There were a lot of, you know, nice people and stuff, but somehow I just always felt like I was more at home with NA. Now, I admit I haven't gone to a meeting in years, decades even, but it did have its place in that in one of those, after the residential treatment facility, I ended up in a halfway house. And in that halfway house, they forced you to get your paper notarized and everything by going to, I forget, it was like maybe, it was a bunch of meetings every day, that kind of thing. And because I mean, I went to CODA meetings, which is like Codependence Anonymous, you know, because you got to get your paper filled out. You know, don't come back without your paper filled out. You might have to, like, you know, put your clothes in a paper bag, you know, and leave. You know, so it was a real thing. You better find those meetings. CODA, Codependence Anonymous, Codependence Anonymous. That was important for me. That's all about learning healthy relationships. It's not specifically drug oriented. It's about learning to interact in a healthy way. Just in a nutshell, one way to describe it is like, what is codependency? I mean, there's books written on the subject, okay, but one quick way I have of describing it is, let's say Bob wants me to help him move. I don't want to help Bob move. I really don't. You know, it's like after work, I don't want to do it. I want to rest. Or it's my weekend, I don't want to, but I want Bob to like me. You know, I don't want him to be upset with me. So, okay, I'm going to say yes. But all the while I'm doing it, maybe smiling and pretending I'm good with it, but I'm thinking, man, this just sucks. This is not what I wanted to do. So one quick way for me of describing what is codependency, it's like when we do something for another to our own detriment. And I'm sure it's a bigger subject than that because there's books written on it, right? Or I figure it probably is. And I used to know more about it consciously because I had to study that too. But yeah, and at first it was like, what is codependency? One of the counselors said, you're codependent. I'm like, wait, what is that? But yeah, helping someone to your own detriment. I love helping people. Helping people is nice. But what I have grown into is when I help somebody, I do it on my terms, and I do it because I want to, because I feel like it. And you know what? If I don't feel guilty. That's big. That's growth. I actually had to learn how to say no to people, literally. And there's books written on that too. Yeah. So, yeah, if I help somebody, it's because I want to, not because I feel obligated to. Obligation on that level, it's like, no, man, if I help somebody, it's because I want to. But yeah, I had to grow into that. So I went to CODA meetings, and not all meetings, whether it's CODA, NA, AA, and there's that other one, Al-Anon. I didn't have anybody in my family, but I just had to go to every meeting I could find. They were all good for getting my papers done. I forgot what I was saying. But yeah, so CODA, AA, they all had something to offer. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. They're not all created equally. You go to one AA meeting, if you don't like it, don't give up. Find another group, because you're probably going to find a group that you really like the CODA meeting. I went to a few different groups over time, and there was one I absolutely loved. I loved it. They put their chairs in a circle. It was the only one that I ever went to that did that, and it felt right to me, the communication, the interaction, and it was the best one I had ever been to. And then in another city, maybe like a year later, I was at another one that basically just felt like somebody's knitting circle. I went expecting the experience from at least close to the experience of that one I loved, because I had moved and I was looking for something, another group, and it was like somebody's knitting circle. It was like, oh my God, this is like not for me. But all groups are like that. NA, if you find one you love, that's great. If you don't, keep looking. All of them, it's just there's going to be a different feeling to it. So those group meetings were, in their way, important for me for a while. And I remember back when I was on the mountain and it was prescribed to me, to go there, not meaning, prescription, but told to me, you need to do that when you get out of the facility, you need to do that stuff. I would check it out for a while and stuff, but I remember thinking, man, there's nothing magic about it. It's just people sitting and talking, and so I don't really need to go, screw it. Interestingly enough, it turns out there is something magic to it. I mean, come on, everything's a vibration, everything's energy. What is consciousness? What is life? What is reality? Well, when you're getting together with a group of people, there's going to be that energy, that creation that happens from the coming together like that. And also, so there is something kind of magical and on a spiritual, energetic, whatever level. And at the same time, just on a more mundane level, if you will, just hearing somebody else talk about what they're going through, it's like, oh, yeah, I know what that's like. I know what that feels like. Yeah, that happened to me. Or, wow, oh my God, it's not just me. Stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't go anymore. But like I said, I am, praise be, thank the Lord, however you want to put it. I don't have the desire anymore, It's important for me not to forget where I've come, because that keeps me, like, aware and in its way compassionate towards people that may be struggling. That's why I'm making this video after all these years. At the same time, please don't let me be around a drunk person or a person that's high on anything. I don't want to, and I have no patience. I don't need to have patience with that. It's like, if you need help, talk to me when you're straight. I'll do what I can to guide you. That counselor that I said went and checked on me that last time, and he helped me get back in treatment. Drunk people like to hug, a lot of the time anyway. So it's like, when he found me on the mountain, he's trying to help me, I'm like, oh, and he wouldn't let me hug him. He just wouldn't. It's like, no. And I understand that now, in my way. I don't know what was going on in his head, but, and I felt kind of rejected. I wanted to hug him, But, yeah, I don't have any patience for, it's like, yeah, just straighten up and then talk to me, and I'll give you whatever help I can in a way that doesn't, cause me to do it to my own detriment, right? Because that's part of who I am now. That's part of taking care of myself. Happy to help people, not because I'm obligated, because I want to, out of the goodness of my heart. If you try and put me in a position where it's going to cause me some kind of detriment, I'm not going to appreciate it, and I'm not going to help you either. Ta-da, right? Let's see, what else can I share with you? I hope somehow this is all making sense and coming together in a good way. Yeah, it's like that last time after I left treatment and moved on and stuff. I thought I wanted to become a substance abuse counselor. I believe I'd be very good at it, because I've got a lot of history with all kinds of different stuff, and all kinds of stories. And so far, it's like, got a long time straight, right? But interestingly enough, they had, society or whatever, had stepped it up where you couldn't just become a substance abuse counselor. You had to, because I looked into it. It's way back, years ago now. I looked into it because it was like, I was finding my freedom, and I wanted to help others, find their freedom. And then I discovered I had to, go to school for so many years and study this and study that and I'm like, man, these things felt like roadblocks to me. I don't know what it's like these days. If it's easier, then maybe I'd still do it. I feel I'd be really good at it. But yeah, and so I ran into that, and I found out, I forget how, through one of the other people there, that kind of felt what I was going through and not being able to do it because of all the roadblocks I was finding. One of the counselors there, he was like 60-something, and he'd been counseling for a while. And all those roadblocks, all that extra schooling and all that wasn't mandatory, wasn't needed when he first became a counselor. And he was a great counselor. I mean, everybody loved this guy. He was really good at it, and he was real and solid, and, but it was told to me that I think he told me, if all that was in place when he had first, wanted to be a counselor and gone for it, he probably wouldn't have been able to, because he'd be feeling like I was feeling like, hey man, all these years of schooling first and stuff, it's like, these are huge. These are roadblocks to me. Maybe it's changed now. I don't know. There's always more rules and laws and regulations being created all the time that potentially stop a lot of good people from getting into positions where they could do a lot of good things. It may even depend on the state. I don't know. Anyway, I'm doing this video, so now I'm like thinking, I'm going, But this is kind of funny. It's funny now, but that last The halfway house I went to after the treatment facility, one was called a residential treatment facility, the other was called a halfway house, in a different city, which was moving me further away from the mountain. So I was like 30 days in the treatment facility on that last visit. And then several months, like maybe 5 months or something, or 6 months, I don't remember, in the halfway house, far, far away. Same state, but um, far, far away. I was sincere. I was sincere, man. You know, I had a long road that got me to that point. And so I'm in the halfway house and I'm doing my best to do everything they tell me. And I've already learned a lot from my last 3 visits to the residential treatment facility, where I stayed like close to a month every time and like 30 days on the last time, I think. I've already learned a lot. I've already decided to follow their recommendations, even if I didn't understand them, or if I thought it would be different somehow for me. I've already gone through all that. So anyway, interestingly enough, one day they call me into the office at the halfway house. I've been there for several months now. There's a meeting. I'm sitting like here, and they're sitting at their, desks all around me, all the counselors and everybody. And they're letting me know they've decided to kick me out. Wow. I didn't expect that. Maybe a gold star or something, but what? Wait a minute, huh? Yeah, they decided that I was following the program and their recommendations. I don't remember exactly how they said it, but they were saying that I was ultimately they were saying that I was following everything to such a phenomenal extent that they figured I must not even be real. That I made this shit up. I don't suffer from addiction. I'm probably just looking for what they call 3 hots and a cot. Just somebody who has gone there and is playing the game, trying to fake them out. So I got a free place to stay for a while and free food and stuff like that. I am knocking myself out to follow their recommendations. It's been a long road and a lot of years, and I'm just not messing around anymore. I'm not questioning nothing. I'm just saying, what do you want me to do? I need a life. I need to live. I need to somehow move from not knowing how straight people live to actually being a straight person and having a life that I can feel good about, right? And they're sitting me there, handing me my walking papers because they don't believe I'm real. I forget what I said, but basically I said something like that. It's like, I'm knocking myself out. I'm doing absolutely everything. I've learned so much over the years. I was at the residential treatment facility 3 times before I got here. It's like, they were blowing my mind with that one. It was like, WTF, Batman, are you serious? So they didn't kick me out, but that was like crazy. I was doing so good, obviously better perhaps than they'd ever freaking seen, because, I'm out there shaking hands, because, somewhere along the way it was like, and get out there and shake hands, and welcome people to the meeting, get right in there, I'm doing it. What? Oh, good God, that was crazy. Anyway, thanks for listening. I'm glad I didn't forget to share that, because pretty much, what? I'm doing so good you want to throw me out because you don't believe it's possible? Wake up. It's possible. Man. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, I kind of like this little story. I'm going to share it. Growing up, I read a lot of books. I would read all night, and I would sleep in school during the day. I basically had no use for school. Couldn't stand it, okay? But loved reading. Anyway, and so that gave me a good vocabulary. It just did. I mean, and I guess, improved my intellectual capacity or something. So, and we're talking like back in '94. You know, I kind of feel like stepped down a bit intellectually since then. Not through substance abuse or anything, but just, I don't know, not really exercising my mind very much, I think. But anyway, one of the counselors, so I mean, I have a certain way of speaking, right? One of the counselors in one of the private meetings where it's just one-on-one told me that the other clients had a problem with me and didn't like me because I thought I was better than them, something like that. Well, I found that disturbing because I was definitely not any better than any of them. Not even close. I mean, I certainly would have voted for certainly some of them over me any day, in a sense of who I thought, was this or that, or, good stuff. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is there's just no way I thought I was better than anybody there. And what the counselor said, disturbed me and it made me really uncomfortable. And I'm like, what do I do with this? I mean, now I feel like the whole group doesn't like me. Where's the pressure there? So during the next group meeting, it was bothering me so much, I just said it out loud. I mean, the counselor who had said it to me was in the group meeting, and I shared it. I said, I got to say, this is what I was told. And then I went on to say something about reading as I was growing up, and how it affected my, method of speech, and, I know some big words, big whoop, and I'm certainly just as messed up, if not more, than anybody in this room. I mean, I just came out and said all that stuff. And I got to say, it was very gratifying. They all just basically said they loved me, and they turned on the counselor. Oh, okay. I love that, And no, I wasn't trying to set that up. I mean, I was just trying to move out of a hard space. It's like, felt like I was part of the group, and then I felt like the whole group disliked me because of what the counselor said. So the best way for me to handle that was not to keep it all inside, but actually, it worked out great. I didn't know what to expect. I just wanted to talk about it. That was one of the things that I learned in all those residential treatment facility with all the books, and then even the halfway house afterwards. Constructive, how can I say it? Constructive life choices in relation to standing up for myself, standing up for myself, speaking my mind in constructive ways, not being belligerent or anything, but, just doing my best to make the best choices for me, in the sense of not letting people push me around or walk over me or like that, because that was definitely part of the training, because all this is attempting to train you, to arm you for life in the quote-unquote real world, so that you've got the tools, the psychological tools, the tricks, and whatever, that allow you to, as constructively as possible, move through life without feeling the need to pick up a drug as a buffer. So, quick story. I won't name names or anything, but I went to work. When I left that area, I went to work. I had another job first, but then I actually went to work for a university, and I won't name names. But I went there. Now, see what happens if. Okay, I'll keep it in me as the first person. What happened to me was, because I really worked so hard at learning these things, all these things, not the least of which is how do straight people live. I was one of the healthiest, emotionally and psychologically, people probably in the world, certainly in the United States. I was one of them. I'm not saying I was the healthiest one, but I had learned these things well, like somebody grabbing onto the edge of a cliff to stop from falling. I gave it everything I had, you know? There was no more room for messing around. And so I ended up being that, healthy emotionally, psychologically, and everything, with all these tools to interact with people in ways that would stop me from feeling the need to drug myself, right? Well, when you're the healthiest person, that doesn't make it a whole lot easier either, because you still have to deal with virtually everybody else's dysfunction. And there's a world of dysfunction out there. Okay, it made it easier in the sense that I could self-talk, and work my way through, their dysfunction when it clashed up against me and affected me. And that whole thing of standing up for myself and, not allowing myself to be like maybe pushed in a place I don't want to be pushed in, or pushed at all, figuratively. Well, that's great. But when you get into the real world, there was a time at the university where I stood up. I'd only been there a couple of weeks, right? But there was this big meeting with like all the employees and stuff like that, and the head of human resources was at the podium speaking and stuff, and he had come up with something that I felt was a bit unfair to some of the employees, and I just stood up and said it. I did, I mean, I can't say I was being naive, but my sense of fair play, with all the training that I had gone through to prepare me for the quote-unquote real world, I mean, I was primed and just ready to move, And so I stood up, I called him on it, I addressed it, he came back and basically slapped me down figuratively in front of the entire, university. Ow. Well, that's the real world, right? I mean, for me, where do you go with that? It's like, if you want to stay, probably, getting into something. Okay, to be constructive, I wouldn't have gotten into an argument with him anyway, but I didn't like the way he handled it from his side. Okay, I was the one that was all freshly trained in human interaction and wanting to be as constructive as I can. And at the same time, it's an ongoing process. It's not like I learned all the rules and I could apply them, so simply. I mean, it's an ongoing process, and as many personalities as there are, there's that many nuances on, how to dance with somebody in any given situation. But yeah, that was hard, because that was the beginning of a journey of me feeling like I had to compromise on compromise on compromise on compromise on compromise, whereas all my training was saying, I need to stand up for myself, I need to this, I need to that. And then it's like, well, you're the employee, they're the master, and if you want to stay here, then that wouldn't really, as a matter of fact, later on, that day, one of the people that was at the meeting that lived in one of the on-campus buildings as me, he shared with me, he said, what did he say? I forget everything he said, but he said, if you want to, basically he was saying, if you want this to be a good stay for you, you need to stop doing that. In other words, potentially, pissing off the wrong people, because obviously the head of human services was not pleased with my questioning him, certainly in front of the entire school, and he just handled it in a kind of way, So yeah, that's interesting. But that's part of the training, that I received, so that I could handle situations like that without running off the deep end, But that was hard because, man, I had so many compromises, and I felt like, in a way, that was like, well, it was messing with my head to find myself, for whatever reason, in a position where I had to compromise so much, over and over and over again. It actually concerned me. But no, I never went back to substance abuse. I never went back to mood-altering substances. The worst thing I do is caffeine. I like my cup of tea. I get into coffee every now and then, but also, okay, I mentioned meditation. Get a massage if you can. Get group support if you can. Get a sponsor if you can. Me, that was really hard for me because I've just always been a loner, that kind of thing. And getting a sponsor was one of the hardest freaking things I did. I did because I had to, because I was in programs. And I got to admit, I never really utilized the sponsor aspect. But a lot of what the sponsor would have done, because I was in treatment facilities, was being forced upon me anyway. It occurred to me that perhaps sharing some of this today could help someone, could potentially even save someone's life. I'm sure that when I stop the broadcast, there'll be things that I'll say, wow, I wish I'd said that, or what about this? So I may do a broadcast in the future, or I may not. I may just call this good. So I guess that's it for now. I hope you've found this interesting. Ultimately, I hope it's helped someone, somewhere. Hey, okay, I'm going to wrap this up. I hope I've made sense to some people. I hope this has been a good broadcast for you. Remember, if you want to get clean and stay clean, you can do it. Love and peace. Bye for now.